Today, I'm going to cover remediating a security incident on a Mac. And my hopes is that you will take away a better understanding on how to prepare and manage an incident and some inspiration for how you could implement different workflows in your environment. I am Kelly Conlon. I will be your presenter, and I am a security solutions specialist here at Jamf. For today's call, we're going to cover the incident response or IR cycle and identifying the steps to get started with building your own remediation plan. Preparation needed for a security incident or threat, detection and analysis of an incident, remediation and response, and some example workflows with Jamf Protect. And finally, what does life look like post-incident and starting the IR cycle all over again? When a cyber attack or security breach occurs, how fast and effectively an organization reacts is directly correlated to the amount of damage that can be inflicted, the recovery time needed, and even potential cost lost. This process and planning is referred to as a security incident response plan and is a key factor to a successful security program. At Jamf, we are seeing that as Mac adoption rises, their threat landscape is changing, and they are becoming more and more of a target for potential attacks. So, the Mac has always come with built in security tools, and they're great baseline protection, but really it's well suited for an individual consumer. And with new modes of attack and a larger presence in organizations, Macs require better methods to protect them and any organizational data that may be on them. So, regardless of your choice of a Mac security solution, your approach to incident response should be well planned and practiced. Throughout today's call, I will be covering incident response and remediation almost interchangeably. And to define them quickly, incident response, or simply IR, is actually pretty self defined in its name. It is most commonly described as the process by which an organization handles a data breach or cyber attack. And remediation is simply the act of remedying or correcting something that has been corrupted. So ultimately, most of the time, the action in your incident response plan is remediation. The incident response cycle you see here was set forth by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or simply NIST. This covers the four components of incident response as preparation, detection and analysis, containment, eradication, and recovery, or remediation, post-incident activity, and then simply starts at the beginning all over again. So let's start with the first step of building an IR plan. To begin, you need to prepare, and the best preparation is to have a thorough understanding of your environment and infrastructure, as well as the threats that could affect you. So essentially, you need to develop situational awareness and be aware of what is around you or just simply your surroundings. Now, security has always been a top priority for almost every organization. This covers operational and physical security to the information security and protection of data. And with the current situations creating a shift to a larger remote workforce, it will be even more important to have these plans in place. IT admins need to first ensure their devices are as secure as possible by having those devices be managed, monitored, and configured for the best security posture. Think getting fitted for armor before battle. And to do this, starting with an MDM is the best place to fire up the forges. So Jamf Pro is such an MDM, and this provides monitoring and enforcement that will help to keep you up to date on the state of your Macs and identify any devices that are not meeting the standard. Using smart groups in Jamf Pro, IT admins can actually hunt for devices that need to be updated, have some reconfiguration done, or even have restrictions enforced. All of this can be done remotely and even be automated without an administrator needing to physically touch the devices. Now, to ensure we are keeping a pulse of the activity on the devices and start to harden the device's defenses, an organization may look to implement some security software like Jamf Protect, which is simply an endpoint security solution that is purpose built for the Mac. Adding in an additional security tool will help to block known threats to the Mac, gather process and file information for forensic analysis, as well as monitoring for specific behavioral detections. So, just by using an MDM like Jamf Pro and adding in an additional security tool like Jamf Protect, we will help you understand your environment better and identify those threats as they arrive. So, now for the second step in the IR cycle, detection and analysis. Now that our security and IT teams are in a position and on alert in the event of any potential attack, we need to make sure that over time they don't become complacent or stagnant while waiting for an attack. And to do this, they can continue to do monitoring of those detections as well as deeper analysis of events. Former FBI Director James Comey was once quoted stating, "There are two kinds of big companies, those who've been hacked and those who don't know they've been hacked." So essentially, despite our preparation and even preventative mechanisms we have in place, security and IT teams should assume that an attack will get past their best defenses because you really can't protect against something you don't know entirely. So, to ensure we are staying focused, security teams need to do constant analysis of events occurring on these devices to increase their chances of identifying an unknown threat. But we still need to detect and analyze known threats as well. So, let's imagine an end user accidentally downloads a Trojan application. It's time for your endpoint security solution, like Jamf Protect, to get to work, alert you on this compromised process. And when that security incident occurs, you need to know what that malware may do and how impactful its attack is. This is when you need to collect all relevant information and use that to analyze the threat. So, security teams always need to have as much visibility as possible during an incident so they can make informed decisions. Also, they may need to collect activity logs and reports and send that data into a SIM or a security incident and event management tool. This will help them to visualize the data and perform deeper analysis. So, when an investigation of a threat is occurring or simply an audit is being done, an organization needs to have a complete picture of what activities are happening on their Macs. Now to step 3, the action. All right, I'm going to be honest, this is my favorite section of the cycle. Now, the preparation you have is in place, and the results of your detections are arming you to respond. Remediation can typically be handled two ways. It can be automated and immediately following an incident or a threat, or it can be done after a threat has been identified and used to clean up the attack. To dive into remediation as an automated response to a threat, let's again say we have an attack that's active on a network. First, the attack has to be stopped and prevented from spreading to other devices. Because of your preparation and planning, the relevant process will be likely stopped and blocked by a tool like Jamf Protect or a similar solution. But that does not mean the attack is completely finished and it didn't leave anything behind. So we can start by providing a response to your end user that there was malicious activity on their device and to refrain from any further actions. We then can quarantine any associated files or processes and isolate the device on the network until the device is clean and set back to a known good state. So instead of just talking about examples of remediation, let me actually show you. Just to go over, all of these examples are going to be using Jamf Pro and Jamf Protect. First, let's start with setting up everything. In Jamf Protect, we need to choose what detection we want to respond to. Here you can see we have a number of behaviors that Jamf Protect is monitoring for with our analytics. For today, I'm going to choose a DNS modification. Once you've chosen the desired analytic, simply click Update Actions and Add to Jamf Pro Smart Group. This is where you're going to type out a value that will later become an extension attribute written to the device. Now, in Jamf Pro, we need to add a script to find the extension attribute created by Jamf Protect. All you need to do is go into the settings for your Jamf Pro server and get to Computer Management and then Extension Attributes. So to make it easier at Jamf, we've added a template under the Jamf section for Jamf Protect Smart Groups. Once you've added the template script, all you need to do is simply hit save. Next, we need to build a smart group. So going in and clicking New, we can give the smart group a name. I recommend using the extension attribute value in the name to stay organized. And now we need to add the criteria, which is just the extension attribute we've added from that template, looking for the value that is written by Jamf Protect. Now that smart group can be scoped to configuration profiles to exclude that device from company resources or be scoped to a policy for some customization. And for a policy, Jamf Protect actually runs a custom event trigger as soon as that detection happens. So when creating a policy, you can simply add protect, all lowercase, within a custom event trigger to allow for near real-time response. Okay, now we have everything set up between Jamf Pro and Jamf Protect. Let's go through some actual examples of remediation and response. So again, I like to organize by threat level. So this is an example of a low-level threat, something not truly malicious and almost no impact. In Jamf Protect, we have those behavioral alerts within our analytics that are looking for a variety of activities that are largely mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. In this example, an end user does a DNS modification, which Jamf Protect is monitoring for. Once Jamf Protect has been alerted that this user has done this modification, it then will tell the Jamf Pro agent managing the device to run a script to simply launch Jamf Helper and notify the end user that there may have been malicious activity occurring on their device, and they may need to contact IT. So this response is not doing anything automated or deleting or stopping, but just telling the end user on what activities are happening on their device. Next, we're going to cover responding to a medium level threat. So something that is definitely unwanted, but has minimal impact. In this workflow, the end user tries to open a downloaded media player. This specific version has been infected with known malware. So when the end user tries to launch it, Gatekeeper will actually stop the application. And Jamf Protect is monitoring for activity from Gatekeeper and all of those other native security tools to keep you informed on their activity. Because we know Gatekeeper has stopped something unwanted, we can again use Jamf Helper to further inform the end user of what's happened on their device and actually prompt them to do some cleanup themselves. So using self-service, this can all automatically open a policy to have the end user delete all files that have been downloaded in the last 24 hours, hopefully removing that compromised application. Now let's cover a high-level threat. This is where something malicious has definitely occurred, but we have no idea what that impact may be. In this example, a user is going to open up their browser and they're immediately prompted with a pop up telling their Adobe Flash Player is out of date. This is a very common delivery mechanism to get malware onto a Mac. So as soon as that installer has been downloaded, this triggers Jamf Protect, and this immediately pushes another Jamf helper policy from Jamf Pro, telling the end user what they've done and what actions have taken place. What we've done is we've isolated this device by cutting off its access to the network. This will hopefully limit the impact of any possible breach and keep the device quarantined and isolated until the threat can be analyzed. Okay, for our last example, I want to show you how using our methods of customized response can give you some really unique remediation workflows. Jamf Protect has a feature called threat prevention that allows you to block and quarantine known Mac threats, as well as allowing you to create custom lists to block processes from the binary level. So say there's a new 0-day for Mac malware. As soon as the hashes are identified, or even the developer team ID, you can create a custom prevent list to protect your devices from this new threat as soon as that information is available. So to go over this a little bit deeper, so here we have a shared directory that IT or InfoSec would have access to on all your devices. Also, I want to show you the directory that Jamf Protect's threat prevention quarantines threats. Now, the end user here is going to attempt to launch an executable that is in Jamf Protect's threat prevention. On launch, Jamf Protect immediately blocks and removes the executable, and as you can see here, it has now been quarantined. So now Jamf Pro is actually installing a response tool of DEP Notify, which is just an open source program that's typically used to onboard users. But what I've done is I've taken advantage of DEP Notify's full screen feature to lock the end user out while additional scripts are being run that are going to zip up that malware, move it to that shared drive, as well as cleaning up that quarantined location, all while informing the end user of exactly what's happening and the progress. As soon as remediation has been completed, we can prompt the user again with some best practices and follow-up step recommendations. And as you can see, that malware has now been zipped and moved to that shared drive, and that directory for quarantine has been cleaned. Okay, so now that we've gone over some examples of remediation, let's get back to the IR cycle and go over the final step. I like to call this step sentry mode. We've survived our attack and we've responded. Now we're going to readjust to get back to normal, but we want to also enhance our defenses. So we have this heightened awareness of what's just happened, and we need to make sure we stay hypervigilant. So you can use Jamf Protect to continue to monitor and report on any additional activity or incidents, or even monitor for indicators of a threat. You can also expand your security approach to cover additional targeted threats that you were able to identify. And lastly, we can ensure that all end users, and especially those affected by an attack, are aware of provided operational and information security trainings and education courses. And by doing this, we actually send ourselves back to the start of the cycle by increasing our preparation. Okay, let's quickly go over everything we've covered. So we went over the incident response or IR cycle and building your own remediation plan, the preparation needed for a security incident, detection and analysis of an incident, remediation and response, and some example workflows with Jamf Protect and Jamf Pro. And finally, what does life look like post-incident and starting that IR cycle all over? If you'd like some more information, I've included a QR code to a guide by Jamf covering macOS security incident response. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. We will share the recording as soon as it's ready. But if you're in a hurry, you can scan this QR code to get in touch with someone at Jamf immediately.